Hello everyone and welcome to this Video Some Frontier video. My name is Jay Wakefield and at the time of recording this video the date is November the 11th 2016 and as such marks exactly 98 years since the Armistice Treaty was signed, thereby ending fighting on the Western Front and effectively ending World War I. Or the Great War as it was known back then, the war to end all wars. And I would like to talk to you a wee bit about what Armistice Day in modern times kind of means to me. Because there's been a lot of talk, as there always is at this time of year, about Remembrance Sunday. Some folk think that Armistice Day, Remembrance Sunday, all this kind of period tends to glorify war, and that is something that I will be touching on in this video. Obviously, while I'm talking in this video, as you can probably see, I'm playing some mind test in the background. Just basically so it doesn't kind of drag the video on too long. Just basically something for you to sit and watch while you listen to me ramble, if that is what you wish to do. And if you do, thank you very much, but you don't really have to if you don't want to. Anyway, I personally, as you may know, I personally am against war. But I completely understand, that in times gone by, people saw it as necessary for actual defence. As forces invading, you've got to fight back. Now, I'm not entirely au fait with the causes of the Great War. I'm more kind of versed with how World War II began and what have you. So I'm not going to go into that at all because I'm really not a history person at all. That there are things that I do know, or I believe I know, but I would never call myself a compendium of any kind of knowledge when it comes to World War I. Anyway, to start with, the poppies. Again, like I was saying, the Daily Mail wants us to believe that people of minorities, people from different countries, are a wee bit offended by our poppy and have been known to burn them and all that good stuff. Well, to be honest, if that is true, it is a minority of people, okay? So, I want people to stop using Armistice Day to vilify minorities, okay? Just stop it. It's not cool. This is not what our grandfathers and great-grandfathers and what have you fought and died for. And to be honest, I do believe, I am one of the people that do believe that, modern Remembrance Day does tend to maybe a wee bit glorify war. And, I'm not a big fan of that. Do I believe that the fallen should be honoured? Yes, I do. Now, originally, Armistice Day was marked, and a minute's silence is usually held at 11 o'clock, the time that the Armistice Treaty was actually signed. A minute's silence is normally observed, and traditionally that was observed to remember the fallen. When I say the fallen, I mean everyone who died as a result of the Great War. Soldiers from every side civilians who died, because a lot did. Basically, everyone who died, as a direct result of the World War I fighting, this is who we used to remember. But in recent times, it seems to have been more about, we've just got to honour the soldiers. And not just that, we've got to honour the British soldiers, at least certainly in Britain. And then you've got far-right groups like Britain First, who use the war to actually, try and legitimise their message. We've got to get rid of these Muslims. All Muslims are terrorists. We've got to, get rid of them all. And, brave soldiers fighting overseas today. Yes, the soldiers that are fighting overseas today, while I appreciate everything that you're doing, I do not appreciate what the government are telling these soldiers to do. I mean, people wrongly, and yes, I do believe it is inaccurate to be saying that, soldiers fighting in Afghanistan, Iraq, and places like that they're fighting for our freedom! Yeah! Because, to be honest, they're not. What they are fighting for, and it's quite ingenious, is this: they are fighting for oil. And I'm being serious. I mean, look at the Iraq War. I mean, we went to war with Iraq on a completely false pretense. It was proven that there was no weapons of mass destruction quite a while before the conflict began. And, Tony Blair, George Bush, they were just like, well, let's go to war with Iraq. And what they've basically done is to destabilise that region of the world. And, hoping to, import a bucket load of American democracy. Which, yeah, okay, democracy in Iraq, it would be nice, but actually it's really not in a very good state. In fact, it's in a much worse state than when Saddam Hussein was still in power. And that is saying something, because Saddam Hussein was not a very nice man, by any stretch of the imagination. But, at least people were mostly safe. I mean, the Iraq War is something that, does have me sitting on the fence. I was completely against the war from the outset, and I still am today. I mean, there's been so much loss of life, so much needless loss of life. But on the other hand, I really don't think any country should be under the yoke of anyone like Saddam Hussein or any other dictator. For example, if it really was about liberating the country and what have you, why was Robert Mugabe not unseated? Maybe because Zimbabwe doesn't really have any oil. I mean, what's happened in Iraq now is you've got guerrilla groups, and you've got folks like, ISIS and Daesh, Assad, maybe not in Iraq, but, all over the Middle East, just kind of taking places by force. Is that any better than Saddam? No. Hell no. I just feel that, this was an ideological war, and it's part of a bigger and much more ideological war. War on terror. War of terror, as I like to call it. George W. Bush started it. And there was never any real plan about it. There was never any kind of mission to work with other countries to find out about who did 9/11, where can we get the guy, the guys involved and bring them to justice. It was basically just shock and awe, man, and then just bomb places like Iraq and Afghanistan, you know, and obviously try to start stuff with Iran and Jangs. And the thing just keeps going on and on and on. And what makes it worse is, I mean, you know, other places have become destabilized. Syria, for example, Libya, places like that, you know, and that's caused the refugee crisis. You know, I'm sure you've all seen, like, you know, pictures that have arisen from that, you know, people drowning in the Mediterranean, washing up on beaches. Very unpleasant viewing. And, I mean, last year, what was Britain's answer? The UK, Westminster. What was their answer to the refugee crisis? Well, we should go and bomb more Syrian junk. Yeah, that was their answer. Oh, there's a refugee crisis going on, guys. Let's bomb the place where all the refugees are coming from. Let me ask you a question, boys. Do you think that will create more or less refugees? Because I think I know which answer I'm going for. And it's not the one that you would think. Because if you did think, you wouldn't be going bombing the place. I mean, I know there's a lot that, you know, I don't know about a lot of the situations, but, you know, what I have read and I have looked at, I certainly believe the West is fanning the flames of hatred rather than, you know, trying to actually restore peace in the regions, you know, as they make out that they're going to do. And it's the people who look to NATO for help. And to be honest, I personally think NATO at this point are a bunch of warmongering hooligans. And then you've got, obviously, the arms trade. Now, time was, the arms industry existed because a war created a need for them. Nowadays, it's the opposite way around. The arms industry, wars happen, in part at least, because the arms industry have created a need for wars. Because they need wars to basically keep themselves in... in riches. And it's just totally abhorrent. And, you know, and what's going to happen with Russia? Well, I don't know. That is a big question. What is going to happen with Russia? Does anyone know? I really don't know what to make of that, because again, you know, Putin's not been the best. He wouldn't win a Citizen of the Year award, I don't think, in any sensible possible dimension. You know, and I don't like the way they've been annexing, you know, different countries. But it seems that America likes to start things with Russia. I mean, they've all these they've all these military bases surrounding Russia. Is that Russia posing a credible threat to America, or is that the other way round? And the problem is, everyone has nuclear weapons nowadays. All the big superpowers at least have nuclear weapons. And, you know, I know what some of you will say, but Jay, it's a good thing we did, because, you know, if we didn't, Russia would have blown us off the map. Well, that's all very well and good. And then other people say, well, of course we've got nuclear weapons. It's good because we've not had any wars that have been destructive as, you know, World War II because of the nukes. Okay. Maybe not in the West. We've maybe not seen the amount of destruction in the West. But certainly in the East, the destruction, the death of innocent civilians keeps going on to this day. They're fighting now. As you're watching this video, they are probably fighting now. And if they've stopped fighting and we've managed to get a peace treaty between now and the time you watch this video, then suffice it to say, I will hopefully be very happy about this. But, it's... As long as the West has not suffered any casualties, I'm glad that the West is not in the grip of war on our shores, but I don't think it's a question of if it was to come to our shores. I think it would be a question, if we continue in the direction we're going in, it'll be a question of when it comes to our shores. And, I certainly do wonder what Trump's presidency will do to affect that. Because on the one hand, people say that, he's quite pally with Putin, so hopefully, he's not going to inflame any tensions between the States and Russia, which is quite frankly a good thing. At the same time, his xenophobic rhetoric to Muslims, Mexicans, and other minorities, what's that going to do? And it's not just Donald Trump that we need to be scared of. In fact, he's probably the small end of the problem. What the bigger end of the problem is America has voted in a Republican House of Representatives, a Republican Senate, and is probably going to end up with a Republican Supreme Court as well. What's that going to do? That will probably end like the Bush years. America just kind of going headlong into another war that's completely unnecessary. And for what? Profit? No. It brings us back to Armistice Day, I think. If it doesn't, I'm making it bring us back to Armistice Day. And the fact that nowadays the general attitude is, remember the British heroes that are fighting overseas today. That term is kind of bandied about a lot. These are heroes. And to be honest, I don't know. Just the people who usually use the term heroes, they usually got kind of some ulterior motive. The thing is, though, I can't blame the actual soldiers, the people actually doing the fighting. I can't really blame them, because when you're in the army, you don't act of your own free will. You take orders. You take orders from people much higher up than you. So, really, I don't want to blame the monkey. I want to blame the organ grinder. The people who send these people to wars to die. And what for? For profit. This is not about protecting British or American freedoms. It's about protecting British and American corporate interests. And you're prepared to sustain collateral damage, as you guys would call it? No, that just does not compute with me. No. But the problem is, these days, on Armistice Day, we're told by a select group of people, newspapers, media outlets, politicians, blah blah blah, that we should do well to actually use the minute's silence and what have you to remember those that are fallen in today's wars. And I think we should. But what I think Armistice Day needs to be is a lesson on what war can do. You see, we've lost all of their surviving soldiers from the Great War, at least in Britain. Harry Patch, he died not so long ago, I can't mind, but as he was the oldest surviving British soldier from the Great War. And obviously, World War II, that was about 20 to 30 years later. That people who fought in that war, people who remember that war, they are starting to die off now, because they're getting on a wee bit. People who actually were around, and were actually grown up enough to, well, aware enough to remember what was going on. You know, they can tell us about what dark times it were. I remember 10 years ago, actually. In fact, I blogged about this on my old blog. I was actually with my parents for Christmas, and Goodnight Mr. Tom was on. You know, and for those of you who don't know, Goodnight Mr. Tom is a film about a young lad who is moved into the country, because that's what they did in Britain. They moved all the children out of the big cities to the countryside, so they would be safer from bombs and what have you. And anyway, my gran was talking about how horrible it was and that you couldn't trust anyone and what have you. And it got me thinking. I mean, this was at the same time. This was around about the same time Saddam Hussein was actually hanged. You know, and the fighting in Iraq was still going on, Afghanistan, all that kind of war destruction. But it got me thinking, why do we not learn the lessons of the past? You know what they say? They do say that those who fail to remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And that is so true. We keep repeating the past. It's like World War One. You know, time was, we would actually reflect on the utter wanton destruction, you know, and the horrible ways that people died as well, because, I mean, that was when chemical warfare was used quite a bit. It was horrible. But, I mean, obviously I can't say how horrible it is from a first-person perspective because I wasn't around. But I think we need to listen to people. I think we need to listen to people who are around. We need to read accounts of those who were around. We need to listen to the people who are still around. You know, talking about World War II and, you know, what that was like to live through and fight in and what have you. You know, because those people will tell you that war is not a good thing. I think that we definitely should remember the fallen from all wars. I think that's a good thing. But we should be sure to remember the fallen from all sides. Remembrance Sunday and Armistice Day should not be about jingoistic nationalism. It should be a time to promote togetherness, peace, understanding. It should be a time where we denounce war, denounce conflict. Because I'm pretty sure our forefathers did not fight so that we could continue to fight to this very day and basically act like the people who we were fighting against. This is why, yes, I do wear a poppy, but nowadays I wear the white ones because the white ones represent peace. I will certainly not berate anyone for wanting to wear a red poppy. I mean, that's absolutely fine. But just remember what that poppy symbolises. It symbolises peace. People tell me all the time, but Jay, we'll never have peace because we've never had it. Yeah. And I also know that it is the human condition to fight. Part of the human condition is greed. I am well aware of this. You know, I know I have a lot of, but I guess it's all in the trying to be the best person you can be, trying to work with people, trying to get on with people. Okay, we're not going to get on with everyone, but as a collective we, a pejorative we need to all work towards world peace. We might not get it, But does that mean we should stop trying? Does that mean we shouldn't even start to try? No. I mean, and one of the first things that we need to do as people is to start reversing this trend towards xenophobia, racism, bigotry, fascism. We need to stop this, because that's not going to help anyone. All it does is breed hatred and ignorance. And that is what generally tends to lead to war. We need to actually vote in elections. We need to actually look at the candidates, properly look into them, not just kind of take what the mainstream media throw at us, but actually go and do our own research. And the internet is a brilliant place for that. Because you will find things that you would not find in the newspapers or on the television. We need to research the candidates, what their track records are, and vote for the best candidate who will offer principles, proper principles. We need to also make sure that we keep in touch with our representatives, MPs, congresspeople, MSPs, MEPs, councillors, senators, whatever you have, whatever system of government you have in your country. You need to keep in contact with your reps. Look at what is being discussed. If you don't agree with something, if something just does not seem right, start a petition. Sign petitions. Sign petitions that people send to you if you agree with it. Obviously don't sign if you feel that you really can't get behind the cause. But if you feel that you can get behind a certain cause, sign petitions. Retweet things. Share things on social media. Look at different news articles from different sources. Share and retweet those. Become enlightened. And help your friends and family and co-workers and everyone you care about to become enlightened as well. Try and work with people who hold your opposing point of view. And this is hard, and I really shouldn't say this because I know that I find it very difficult to do that. But have conversations with people who oppose your point of view. Ask them why. Get them to argue their point appropriately. Have a look at their point. Is there anything valid about their point? Is there anything... Because you might actually find something that you didn't actually think, from a certain angle before. Or if you think that the points that they're making are invalid, try and argue your point in a mature and measured manner. And then maybe they will see things from a different angle. And there's little things that we can all do today, now, this minute, to actually help the effort towards peace. I know that during World War II, it's quite funny actually, World War II, everyone was working for the war effort. It's like you mended old fighter jets or battleships. It was to the war effort. Well, I think it's about time we worked to the peace effort. We need to do this sooner rather than later, because if not, humanity will destroy itself. We have nuclear weapons that are exponentially more powerful, just not even comparable to those that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki back in 1945. we just do not have... and that caused so much destruction. And yet we have nukes that are so much more powerful now. And if we keep going in the direction that we're going now, what's going to happen is it's going to end in mutually assured destruction. We're going to blow the planet asunder. Every living being on the planet will not die. They will be literally obliterated. Is this what we want for those who we care about? And yes, even those who we don't care about? I don't think so. You know? And for those of you who are religious, you know, isn't it about time we actually looked at the Bible verse, love thy neighbour? You know, and I'm pretty sure that there exist similar phrases in other religious texts as well. And while we're on the subject, please stop with the Islamophobia. It's actually getting old. Yes, there are parts of the Quran that you might find a bit questionable, but have you read the Bible? The entire Bible? There's parts in the Bible that are questionable as well. There's a lot of parts in the Bible that just are not practiced anymore. I mean, The Simpsons is pretty good, actually, for being quite politically astute. You know, and sometimes it does really reflect real life. I can't remember which episode it's from, but, you know, the part where Reverend Lovejoy goes to Marge Simpson. Have you actually read this thing? It's a sin to go to the bathroom. And that's a natural thing that we do. You know, and let's not forget, I mean, if, you know, people are saying, you know, people call Islam a cult of death. I'm sorry. Look at all the wars that white Christians have started or become involved in or what have you. I mean, look at Hitler. You know? So you can't just scapegoat one group of people. Shouldn't really scapegoat anyone. In fact, we probably should stop looking for blame. And I know I've blamed a lot on the West here, and this is totally ironic, and I know this. But I mean, that's something I've got to go and sort out, and do that, and try and work towards it. I admit that. One of my many, many, many great flaws. But, I mean, I've thought for a hell of a long time we need to work towards peace. And yes, I am an independence supporter. And that's not because, you know, I don't like anything south of the border. It's because I think Scotland should be able to self-govern and, you know, do what is right for Scotland. And part of that is a lot of people in Scotland, we have just about had enough of getting involved in wars, you know, that were dragged into by London, who in turn are being dragged into them by America. You know, I mean, Scotland's response to the refugee crisis was much different to that in London, Westminster. You know, we were actually genuinely excited to help these people, whereas Westminster and, you know, certain parts of England, I admit, and only certain parts, but certain parts of Scotland as well, you know, because we're not all complete angels here. Nobody is. No race of people are just 100% perfect. No person is 100% perfect. You can't be. It's impossible. But, you know, certainly, you know, Scotland did seem to have a more welcoming attitude. And, you know, I think if we become independent, we can spread that. You know, we will... Because this is what Scotland is like nowadays. We want to be friends with everyone. We don't want to go to war with anyone. We want to be friends. We want you to come over and have a cup of tea and a wee piece. And I think that's good. You know, and like I said, you know, if everyone does what they can, then we can at least work to get people informed about what's going on, what really is going on. And hopefully with that, we can get more people to actually question warmongers and what have you and say, no, this is not right. Why are you doing this? Things don't add up. Anyway, I've rambled on for way too long enough, so I think I will end this video. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, please feel free to subscribe to my channel, like Videos on Frontier on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter, where no doubt you will get a feed of why we should have voted yes. And let's please stop Donald Trump and Monsanto for covering the world in impenetrable smog. But for the meantime, I hope you've all enjoyed this video.